You hear stories like this all the time, right? Someone lays down an ultimatum. It's a test, a line in the sand. They're looking for a reaction. They want you to fight, to plead, to prove your devotion by wrestling with the ghost they can't let go of. My wife, she gave me one of those. We were in the kitchen, the fluorescent light humming overhead, making everything feel sterile and cold. She was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, not angry, just resolute. "Final," she said. "My ex will always be around. If that bothers you, leave." And I just looked at her. I stayed calm, didn't explain myself, didn't threaten to go. I didn't do any of the things she was braced for. I simply listened. And then I did exactly what she suggested. I just didn't do it the way she expected. To understand why I did what I did, you have to understand the landscape of our marriage. It wasn't a war zone. It was a quiet, well-decorated occupation. Her ex wasn't some shadowy figure from the past. He was present, a fixture. He was the reason we couldn't move to a bigger house in a better school district, because we had to stay in the same neighborhood for co-parenting convenience. He was the last-minute change to every holiday schedule, the third invisible guest at every birthday dinner for our daughter. My daughter. I'd raised her since she was 2. I was the one who taught her to ride a bike, who helped with her science projects, who sat through every school play. But legally, biologically, I was just the stepdad. And he was the fun weekend parent, the Disneyland dad who showed up with extravagant gifts and zero responsibility. My wife's loyalty was always divided. It was a low-grade constant, a drip of acid on the life we were trying to build. Any complaint from me was met with the same shield. He's my daughter's father. He's family. You need to be more understanding. So I understood. For years, I understood when he'd call at 10 p.m. to discuss some trivial detail about summer camp. I understood when he'd drop by unannounced on a Sunday afternoon. I swallowed my pride, my frustration, my growing sense of being a permanent second-place finisher in my own home. The hook she gave me that night in the kitchen, it wasn't born from a fight. It was colder than that. It was a statement of fact. She'd been distant for months, always texting, always protective of her phone. I'd asked, gently, if everything was okay. That's when she turned, with that chilling calm, and delivered her line. "My ex will always be around. If that bothers you, leave." It was permission, or a challenge. I still don't know which. But in that moment, the years of understanding crystallized into something else. A plan. I didn't leave the house. I left the marriage. Quietly, methodically, while still living under the same roof. I called it Operation Ghost. I became the most perfect, compliant, and emotionally absent roommate you could imagine. I stopped engaging with the dynamic entirely. If he called, I'd hand her the phone without a word. If he was coming over, I'd announce, "Your daughter's father will be here at 5, and I'd make plans to be elsewhere. I stopped attending any event where he would be present. Birthday party at the bowling alley? Have fun, you 3. I disengaged from the struggle. I took her at her literal word. His presence was a condition of our life. And since it bothered me, I began the process of leaving emotionally, financially, and legally, while my body still occupied the guest bedroom. I hired a lawyer, a pit bull in a pantsuit. I started separating finances, not draining accounts, but meticulously disentangling them. I documented everything. Every text message about changed plans, every instance of his unnecessary presence, every dollar I'd spent on my daughter, clothes, braces, school trips. I was building a castle of paperwork, and inside it, I was finally, peacefully, alone. My wife, she noticed the silence, but she mistook it for surrender. She thought she'd won. The tension she'd been bracing for was gone. The house was quiet. She had the unwavering compliance she demanded. It took her almost 3 months to realize the quiet wasn't peace. It was vacuum. One night, she came into the living room where I was reading. "What are you doing?" she asked. Not about the book, but about us. About the chilling void between us. I looked up, and I asked her a question I've been turning over ever since. And I'll ask you, listening to this. When someone uses loyalty to another person as a weapon against you, when they make their inability to set a boundary your permanent burden, is the truest form of self-respect not just to quietly stop carrying that weight, to hand them back the exact reality they insisted on? She didn't have an answer. She just stared. The reveal, when it came, wasn't from me. It was from her phone. It buzzed on the kitchen table while she was in the shower. A preview of a text from him flashed on the screen. It wasn't about their daughter. It was a detail, intimate and specific, about the mole on her lower back. A detail a co-parent doesn't need to know. A detail that spoke of a recent, shared intimacy. The always around took on its true, ugly shape. It wasn't about co-parenting. It was about a tie that had never been cut, a door she had kept and was still using. I didn't confront her. What was there to say? Her ultimatum had been the truth. He was always around. And now, it truly, deeply bothered me. So I was leaving, just as she'd instructed. The emotional climax wasn't a screaming match. It was the serving of papers. I had my lawyer send them to her office. I couldn't do it in the home I was already a ghost in. That evening, I was packing the last of my personal files when her car screeched into the driveway. She burst through the front door, her face white, the legal documents crumpled in her fist. "What is this?" Her voice was a shard of glass. "It's me leaving," I said, my voice even. Calm. The same calm I had in the kitchen months before. "You said if it bothered me, I should leave." "It bothers me." "You can't be serious over this. After all this time, you're blowing up our family because you're jealous." "I'm not jealous," I said, slowly zipping my bag. "I'm exhausted, and I finally believed you. You told me, clearly, where his place was in your life. And you told me what my option was if I didn't like it. I exercised my option. It was a figure of speech. I didn't mean actually leave. I meant you had to accept it. And I am," I said, looking at her directly for the first time in months. "I accept that this is your choice. I am simply making mine. You get the perpetual presence you demanded. I'm just removing the part that was bothering you, my disappointment." The confusion on her face curdled into something like horror. She had expected a negotiation, a battle. She had issued her terms thinking they were non-negotiable, thinking I would fall in line. She never imagined I would simply agree and follow through. "What about our daughter?" she whispered, the weapon she'd always reached for. "I love her. She will always be my daughter in my heart. My lawyer has already filed for visitation rights. I've documented my role as her primary paternal figure for a decade. I'm not abandoning her. I'm abandoning this." I gestured between us at the hollow space in the room. "I will be a stable, loving part of her life, but I won't do it from inside a cage of my own making." She just stood there, the papers dangling from her hand, realizing that the wall she'd built to protect her old life had become the prison for her new one. And I had simply walked out of the cell. The fallout is quiet. We're divorced. The settlement was surprisingly fair, thanks to my mountain of documentation and a judge who saw through the mess. I got a fair share of the assets. More importantly, I got shared custody. The court recognized my parental role. I see my daughter every week. We have dinners. She does her homework at my apartment. Our relationship, it's different. More focused. Perhaps more honest. She knows her mom and I aren't together. She doesn't know the specifics, and she doesn't need to. My ex-wife, she got exactly what she said she wanted. He is, as promised, always around. From what I hear through the grapevine, it's not the romantic reunion she might have fantasized about. It's a tense, complicated dance of shared history and present reality, with none of the stability she'd had with me. The grass wasn't greener. It was just familiar weeds. And me? I'm in a small apartment. It's quiet. The silence here is mine. It's not a weapon, not a punishment. It's just peace. Some days it feels lonely. Most days it feels like I can finally breathe. I don't hate her. I feel a distant, sad pity. She was so busy managing the shadow of her past that she didn't see the solid, present life she was eroding until it was gone. The lesson I learned, it's a brutal one. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes respect is more important. And the most powerful response to an ultimatum isn't defiance or submission. It's literal belief. Taking someone at their word is a terrifyingly powerful act. It removes all the games, all the unspoken expectations, all the theater. She gave me a choice wrapped in a threat. I chose me. So, if you're listening to this, and you're in your own version of that kitchen, with that hum of fluorescent light and that cold feeling in your gut, ask yourself, what are you really being asked to accept? And if you were to take them at their absolute word, what would you do? Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to simply accept their terms and then choose your own.